Hello and welcome to ADB Football Focused. I'm your host, Alvin. Hope you guys are having a terrific week. I just want to say this. I love having you fans of the show. I love you guys who are fans of UFL football and they love listening to my show every week. Like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. So let's get started talking about Week 7. Week 7 was an exciting week of football. The Birmingham Stallions and the Battlehawks did not disappoint. In fact, let's start there at that point. What a game that was this week. Birmingham Stallions, I did go to this game. Protective Stadium is an awesome atmosphere. You know, a lot of people were predicting that St. Louis Battlehawks would actually beat Birmingham, because Birmingham, let's say this, they've played everybody, a lot of good teams in the league, but they've, you know, it's like everybody's the bottom feeder kind of that's on the list. And nobody knew how good Birmingham. They knew Birmingham Stallions were good, so good that they're undefeated right now, right? Because they played the St. Louis Battlehawks. Now, St. Louis Battlehawks gave them a game. I will say this: they gave them a game because the final score was 30-26. It went down to almost the end of the game. The St. Louis Battlehawks were driving and had an opportunity to win, but if it wasn't for the fact that they had to go for it on a fourth down play, and Birmingham came away defending the pass very well, ending the game. So it was awesome. And that's another thing. We can talk about Birmingham's defense this game. So let's start here. Let's take a look at the two guys that most people pay attention to the most, and that's the quarterbacks. So A.J. McCarron was 19 of 32, 161 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. Usually his yardage total is a little bit higher, average about 200 or so a game. So it's a little bit lower this game. He had 1 TD and 1 interception, and 1 interception came early in the game. Adrian Martinez was 21 of 33. He had 230 yards and 3 touchdowns. He is still in the MVP status. Now, he also had 7 carries, I believe, for 60 yards on the ground. So he's still in the MVP status. He's a good quarterback. He has the mobility. He's a dual threat. A.J. McCarron is less so of a dual threat, and that kind of hurt him in this game a little bit. He did get hit a couple of times. He took 2 sacks, and he's potentially injured. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. Now, moving on from there, let's look at the receivers, because that's the spot that everybody looks at during the game. So both teams pretty much spread the ball around. Hakeem Butler was probably the leading receiver of all the receivers. He had 7 receptions for 89 yards, no touchdowns. The sole touchdown came from Jacob Sailors, who's also the running back, and we'll talk about them in a minute. He had 4 for 20. Steve Mitchell Jr. this week showed up, but he had 3 catches for 21 yards. Core Pearson was 3 of 9. Now, Aitman didn't show up this week. I don't know if he was in the game, but I don't think he caught a pass. Darius Shepard caught 2 for 22. So, like I said, Aitman didn't show up at all this week, but Hakeem Butler was there. He got 7 of 89 and 9, just couldn't get in the end zone. They did a pretty good job of trying to cover him. He got his yards, but he didn't get in the end zone. On the Birmingham side, Marlon Williams was 4 receptions for 41. Dion Kane, 4 for 29. He's usually the go-to guy. He had a TD, so did Marlon Williams. One of the most spectacular touchdowns of the game, however, came from Kevin Austin. It was a 40-yard sprint to the end zone. And, I mean, it did not disappoint. It kind of excited the crowd, and it got the crowd up and going. St. Louis did manage to score again. But that particular pass somehow ignited the crowd, and that led to the final win. I think it's part of the reason we won. But I'll talk about another reason why the score was so close in a minute. Jay Sternberger caught 2 for 25. Gary Jennings caught 2 for 20. Kind of spread the ball around, so a lot of players got their hands on the ball. Talking about the running game was okay. So if you look at the yards total for both teams, rushing-wise, St. Louis Battlehawks only had 64 yards. Birmingham did manage to have 144 yards on the ground. Battlehawks had 2 TDs, and Birmingham Stallions had 1. The leading rusher, of course, was Adrian Martinez. He had 7 for 60. Ricky Pearson was 10 attempts for 42 yards. C.J. Marable, actually, I think C.J. Marable was probably one of the better part of the game to watch. He 7 of 31 for 1 yard. Between him and Pearson, they've got 2 really good running backs there. They did also have a couple of end rounds. Isaiah Zuber and Marlon Williams both had 1 carry apiece. So, like I said, running-wise, Birmingham looked best because Adrian Martinez was doing his thing. Not only was he passing well, he was running the ball well, and that kind of, slowed down the defense a little bit. They did get 3 sacks in this game, but that's part of that is because Adrian Martinez is a scrambler. The other part of that was there were some letdowns on the offensive line, but not a whole lot. St. Louis, there was more hits on A.J. McCarron than they're talking about. For one thing, A.J. McCarron got hurt potentially on a play where they call roughing the passer. Now, my problem was the hit was below the waist, first of all. And if you watch the video, I guess I'll show that video here. If you watch the video, the hit was before A.J. McCarron released the ball. Now, the referees are saying that he had released the ball and that the defender continued with the tackle. The hit came before, as far as I can tell. Now, I'm doing the best I can to be neutral on this. I am a Stallions fan, but being neutral on this, I was watching that play and I watched it several times. It looks like the defender got there just as the ball was being thrown. So you cannot say that was a late hit. That's the way it looks. That's the best way to put it. That's how I feel about it. You can be on either side of that issue. You can leave a comment below, whatever you think about that particular hit. But that being said, this is still an opportunity where A.J. McCarron may be hurt this game. We will see. He did go have an MRI done on his ankle. I have not heard any updates on the ankle injury. I'll have to look those up to see if there are any, but I haven't heard of any updates on that injury so far. Again, like I said, this was the best game of the day. If we look at some yardage totals, this game comparison, total yards. Bellhawks had 214. Stallions had 349. Passing yards, 150 to 205. Rushing yards, 64 to 144. So Birmingham was more productive offensively. Penalties, Birmingham actually had more penalties. They had 7 for 65 than Battlehawks, 6 for 57. That's been a problem that's been plaguing Birmingham every week. First downs, this is a telltale sign. Birmingham had 25 first downs to Battlehawks 12 first downs. So that's a telltale sign that they were turning the ball over more than Birmingham was during the course of the game. Third downs, 4 of 12 for the Battlehawks. And that's another telltale sign. The Stallions were 7 of 11, which is much better, improved for them on third down. Red zone efficiency is something we'll have to look at in a minute. Fourth downs, 2 for 3 for the Battlehawks. The Stallions had no attempts for the fourth down. Total plays, 49 for the Battlehawks, 62 again for the Stallions. And like I said, if you go back and you look at that stats, like first down, so we've had total plays of 49, 62, and they got 12 first downs and 25 versus 25 out of that. That's not a good sign right there either. Average yards per play, 4.4, 5.6. Sacks. Now here's what's funny about sacks. The Stallions got more yards out of their sacks. If you look at it, they got 169 yards out of their sacks than did the Battlehawks. So, and they had less sacks. They had 2, and the Battlehawks had 3. So, that says a lot too. Time of possession is about even, 29-47 for the Battlehawks, 30-13 for the Stallions. Turnovers, both teams had turnovers. And that's another thing I want to talk about. Birmingham Stallions has got to do better on special teams. They've had at least two punts blocked this year. Isaiah Zuber was back for doing returns this time around because we had an injury to this week. Zuber dropped a dropped ball that could have led to a touchdown. I think both times they said they failed to get in the end zone or whatever. They had a block punt. They didn't get in the end zone, but it gave the Battlehawks great field position. Then again, on this play, it gave the Battlehawks great field position. I do believe they scored on one of these two plays. So, it's like you got to stop them from doing that. You got to stop them from being able to score on you in those situations. You can't turn the ball over because it often leads to scores, especially if they get really good field position, which they did on that punt. And this is the Battlehawks. This is a team that's pretty decent on offense, even decent on defense. So that was our bomb. Then we had a missed field goal. So this week it's a total D. I ain't gonna say F for special teams because special teams, when we have some good kick returns, we got some pretty decent yards off the kick returns. I'm going to say D this week for effort just because of the missed field goal, because of the block punt, and the muffed return. So between those three, I had to give them a D. And I've probably been on this game the longest just because I was there. The atmosphere was great. It's about 14,000 people there. I think this time we had more people than the DC Defenders, and we're going to talk about them in a minute. We had more people at our game than the DC Defenders, who had about 12,000 people at the game. They still have a very good, loyal following. That's a great stadium. Birmingham Stadium, Protective Stadium, is a great venue. I don't care. There's been some stories out there about, what about when they have rain delays and all? That's with any outdoor sport. Anytime he's playing outside, there's chances there's going to be a rain delay. But the venue is great. Love Protective Stadium. Had some issues with the concessions this week, but we will talk to concession people about that. For the most part, like I said, no other issue. Easy. Parking is... There's plenty of parking. Let's just put it that way. Ease to get to the stadium. We actually parked down the street from the stadium and got there in a few minutes. It wasn't that big of a deal. People were parked all over town. That's usually what happens because there's more than just what's going on. The Civic Center's part, it's like an entertainment district down there. So there's restaurants across the street like Todd's English Pub and Texas Day Brazil. There's also a Mexican restaurant. There's mug shots, coffee shop, pizza shop. I mean, it's all sorts of things you can get while you're down there. So then there's also Top Golf in the area. Then next door is Legacy Arena. They play basketball there, and they have concerts. Had the concert halls, the Civic Center. So there's a lot going on in that area. But we also had the Regions Golf in the city. So Regions Golf attracts a large because it's PGA related. It has a large amount, senior PGA related. It had a large amount of people there. That's been something that's been going on for a while. So, we had to come up against that this week. We still had a crowd of 14,000. We had a great crowd. There were people there who wanted to see AJ. There were also Battlehawks fans there, which was great to see also. I hope they enjoyed the city. I think our city represented well. They were fine there. So, like I said, I spent a lot of time on this game just wanted to bring out all the good information about that. The Birmingham Stallions are in Birmingham to stay. They have done, by winning the past 3 seasons, they've proven they deserve to be here, and the fans enjoy it. That's the key to that. So, now, let's move on to some of the other games, and I'll try to make this as quick as possible because I spent a long time on that. One game I really want to talk about was the San Antonio Brahmins versus the Houston Roughnecks. That was a rough game. In final score was 15-12, okay? Now, another MVP candidate that was in this game was John Lovett, the running back. He had 18 carries for 37 yards, 1 TD. That's about 2.1 yard average. So he didn't have a great game this week, but he scored. Quentin Darmody, the quarterback, he's continuing the struggle. He was 10 for 24, 142 yards, 1 interception, no touchdowns. Everything else was field goals. San Antonio had a walk-off field goal that won the game for him, 15-12. Houston Roughnecks seemed like they had a little fight in them this week. So they did manage that. I think they managed a touchdown, didn't they? They had 1 touchdown, maybe? No, it was all field goals. I take that back. They kicked all field goals. They didn't manage any touchdown. Their offense still wore. Jared Garantano made an appearance again. He was 11 of 8 for 121 yards. No TDs, no interceptions. Reed Sendit played. He had 2 plays for 17 yards, 0 TDs, 0 interceptions. I think he got hurt in the game. I don't know. Like I said, this week, I'm going to be honest with you, I only saw 1 game, and that was Birmingham versus Battlehawks. That was the only game I saw, but I had to watch the highlights for this game, and San Antonio's offense has gone down so bad since they lost Chase Gerbers at quarterback. Hadn't improved any. Kevin Hogan, came in. He was 5 for 7, 38 yards. He didn't do much either. It's kind of like a dumpster fire situation in San Antonio on offense right now. I don't know what team will show up every week. Here's the thing. San Antonio most likely is going to end up in the playoffs because we'll talk about DC in a minute. They're struggling over there. San Antonio, it kind of struggles every week, but manages to win. So they might still be in the playoffs. Their defense is doing great, by the way. Their defense is awesome. I believe they had 6 sacks in this game. Make sure. I'm going to check this out. Yeah. Defensively, San Antonio is doing great. They had 6 sacks. Early on, Houston Roughnecks, the whole game, their defense pretty much ate the Brahmins alive, but they had 2 sacks, 6 tackles for a loss, so they were busy. They had an interception. Fumbles, I don't think they had three. There were 3 fumbles in the game. So 2 fumbles, 3 fumbles, 2 fumbles by the San Antonio defense, and Houston Roughnecks had 3 that they recovered. So it was one of those days where it was rough for San Antonio, and Houston had a little fight in them. And maybe part of the issue was that San Antonio came out thinking they'll win this game, but they're still having problems with Chase Gerber at quarterback. So the quarterback situation is not good right now for San Antonio. I don't know how they're going to end up doing in the end. Like I said, right now, they're doing enough to win. They're doing enough to win. Again, this game was surprising how it ended up. And I thought John Lovett would do better because I would think they would try to establish. They did try to establish the run. It just didn't work the way they thought it would. The offensive line was terrible. That's why there were so many sacks in this game. And I think that's the real reason Quentin Darmody struggled in the game. If you've been sacked 6 times, you're struggling. If some of that may be your fault if they're coverage sacks, but some of the rest of that is definitely the offensive line because the running game shows that was the problem. Let's move on there to the Michigan Panthers versus the DC Defenders. Another game that really surprised me. It just surprised me how bad the DC Defenders are struggling. I didn't really talk about the numbers in the last game, but in this one, Michigan Panthers, I think they had 332 yards to the DC's 235. The telltale number is passing-wise, Michigan is okay. They were 145, 177. Rushing yards, 187 to 58. DC cannot run the ball, and they're struggling passing the ball. Their offense is just struggling, period. So it's like, it's pretty bad. I believe that the Panthers got 3 sacks to DC's 1. That's another issue there. We'll talk about that in a minute. Like I said, Michigan ran the ball really, really well. In fact, Matthew Colburn, number 26, went 16 for 137 yards. Wes Hills, he gave another 10 yards for 37 yards. You had Bryce Perkins, 2 for 13. And Brian Lewerke, 3 for nothing. Bryce Perkins was a quarterback. He was 11 of 13, 116 yards. He came in relief of Brian Lewerke. And so we've got, Michigan's had so many different quarterbacks. I'm kind of confused with them and who's at quarterback right now because every week there's a different quarterback. And they haven't really found a solution to get their offense together. Their running game should be coming together pretty well. So it won this game for them because DC was not able to stop the run. And DC was not able to run the ball nor pass the ball. So if you can't do either one, that becomes a problem. They also lost a fumble, and I believe they had an interception as well. So those 2 things, turnovers hurt. Well, that's the only turnover they had was a fumble. So Jordan Teamo actually got concussed in this game, so he was out. He was 10 of 14 for 127 yards, 1 TD. So he was performing fairly well before he got hurt. Then came Jalen McClendon, who was 9 of 14 for 73 yards. He tried to take over. At this point, DC was behind. They just did not recover. Like I said, Teamo threw the long touchdown they had in the game, and everything else was field goals. Jake Bates was Jake Bates this game. He did a great job. He had to kick several field goals himself because there were, like I said, there was 2 rushing touchdowns, and we got no touchdowns from our wide receivers, which is a big issue with them. They got some good. Marcus Sims could be better than he is. He should be catching more passes than he is. They got some decent wide receivers. Samson Nakua might be an answer too. He had 6 for 45, but all of them were short yardage passes. They didn't really get a whole lot out of their passing game. But they did enough to win because they got the running game going. They got the touchdowns from off the run. I had some long runs. I know that Colburn had a run of 53 yards. So those long runs hurt. And not one time did DC come close as far as running the game to that. Receiving-wise, Kevin Harmon is their leading receivers. He's 6 for 37 yards in this game. He didn't get much again. Ty Scott had probably the longest play, and he scored a touchdown. He had 2 receptions. One of those was for 70 yards. So he put up 2 receptions for 87 yards in all. So he had another 17 on another reception. But other than that, there's no bright spots for DC. DC is looking at the outside of the playoffs. It probably won't make it to the playoffs at this point. But they need to, unless they win out and somehow the Brahmas mess up and win, which is possible with the Brahmas right now, mess up and lose the last 3 games. It's possible. Anything's possible in that situation. Of course, we got to look at this game because Arlington got off the snide against Memphis Showboats. 47-23. Let's talk about Luis Perez. Luis Perez has the most yards of any player. I believe he has like 1,900 passing yards of any player in the league. Luis Perez was 27-32 for 296 yards, 3 touchdowns, a perfect game, 84% completion rating, 193 rating. Now, Scout Lindsey, number 10, also was 2 for 2 for 13 yards, 1 TD. Of course, he's going to get 100%. Plus, he got a really good high rating for those 2 passes he had. They just tore them up. They had not only that they had a quarterback performing well. The running back, Davion Smith, had 14 carries for 101 yards, 2 TDs. They just had a spectacular day. Memphis is just garbage. They didn't do anything on defense. They got sacked 4 times, and they didn't even manage to have any sacks. They got a couple of tackles for a loss. I think Davis had a decent day. He had 7 catches for 83 yards, 1 TD. Vinny Papali, the tight end, had a decent day, 7 for 55, 1 TD. But outside of that, they didn't get much out of it. Troy Williams was the starting quarterback, first of all. And I don't know if that's really the answer to the problem, or that's really the problem, or it's the fact that you're just trying to keep Case Cookins from getting just so tore up from that terrible offensive line. And like I said, Troy was 14-21, 127 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. Case Cookins came in later on, had 11 for 17 for 103 yards, 1 TD, and 1 interception. So in other words, turnover. 2 interceptions in the game, and I believe a fumble as well. Well, they had, 1 fumble that they lost. Renegades actually lost 2 and still managed to win the game. Like I said, Renegades have a tendency to shoot themselves in the foot. At some point during the game, I believe Memphis started making a comeback, and they got to 23 of 47. Rushing the ball, Memphis has a huge problem. Troy Williams was the leading rusher, 6 for 34. Darius Victor is the running back they want to depend on. He was 11 for 33 yards, so he averaged 3 yards a carry, basically. Tyler Swin came in. He's 5 for 29. He's 5.8. He could actually be the answer at running back as compared to Darius. I think they should. Out of the spread formation, Darius Victor is a I-back or a one-back set back. He's not meant for the spread offense at all. It's just not fast enough coming out of the backfield, and they're usually tackling him before he even gets out of the backfield. So Memphis right now, like I said, just nobody has any effort on that team. It just looks awful to watch. You know, you got David Davis trying. You got Vinny Papali trying. You definitely got Case Cookins and Troy Williams trying, but you got guys out there that just aren't doing anything at all. And that it sucks to watch, but it happens. I'm surprised Renegades found life this week. I mean, they found life. You would think a team that's 0-6 wouldn't have any life, but they found life and they're fighting. So there's a chance they can win 3 more games if they keep this fight up, because they got to play the Brahmins at some point. And I'm trying to think who else might be. They could give the Battlehawks all they want. We'll see how that goes in the end, but I know right now one game that I'm sure they're circling on their calendar is against San Antonio. That's the game coming up. So, I've given my review of all the games. Let's look at this week's schedule. Memphis Showboats versus Michigan Panthers. Well, this is in Detroit, Michigan. These are 2 teams. Let me tell you what they have in common. They are 2 teams that are being watched and scrutinized very closely to see if either team will move. Why do I think the Michigan Panthers won't move? Detroit is a great TV market. They love sports there. Michigan Panthers just needs a little more work on their advertising and, getting in social media, getting the vibe out about the team so people would love and enjoy the team. Because the Michigan Panthers could end up in the championship game this year. They do have to play the Birmingham Stallions again, and they also have to play them in the playoffs, so we'll see how that goes. Memphis Showboats, like I said, their team is suffering. They can't get bodies in the single. I think they had less than 6,000 at the last game. They're losing. That's another thing. It's hard to sell to people to get to come to a game is when you're losing. So right now, I say that I think the Michigan Panthers will stay. I hope Memphis stays. That's all I can say. Their TV market is below Birmingham. Birmingham's like 40th. And I believe Memphis TV market is 50th. So it's in the low end of the market, where Birmingham has a little bit more staying power, and they're only 4 hours apart from each other. Yeah, Birmingham is only 4 hours from Memphis. So looking at this first game, I'm just going to give it like it is. Michigan's going to win this one 32-14. I think that's what the final score will be, for 32-14. I think Davis will get a couple of passes. They may even do a little bit of something on the ground. I doubt it against this defense, but we shall see. I think Michigan can score at will. They can run the ball. I think they can even pass the ball better in this game. So I'm going to say 32-14. Houston Roughnecks versus Birmingham Stallions. Well, this is another one, kind of like the Showboats game. A little bit different, though. Birmingham Stallions, these two teams are in totally different directions. Houston can give Birmingham a game because it gave Birmingham a game last time, and I think they'll try to give them a game this week. Birmingham was preparing so hard for the Battlehawks. I hope it prepares for this week, because the idea is to win home field advantage in the playoffs. They've got the upper hand in that situation, because right now I'm looking at this. I don't think there's anybody on the Panther side. It's still possible Birmingham could drop 4 games or 3 games, whatever, and they be 7-3, and I think Michigan's sitting at 3 losses right now, and they win out the rest of the way. That means that Birmingham has got to win this week. They win this week, they got home field advantage, regardless. So this Houston game is important for Birmingham as far as home field advantage goes, but Birmingham's already in the playoffs. So I'm gonna say this, and I got a feeling that Martinez will play this game because of that importance in the game, but at the same time, I think Martinez may sit out this game, and we see Corral this week. Either way, Houston's in trouble when they come to Birmingham for this game. So I'm predicting this score to be 38-9 by the end of the night. It's going to be the same thing that happened the last time around. They might give, like I said, Houston Roughnecks defense might give them, Nate Odens and company might give them a little trouble, but it's going to be the Stallions all night. Okay, DC Defenders versus St. Louis Battlehawks. Battlehawks will be looking to recover from their loss to Birmingham, and DC is looking for a desperate win. Right now they're in the playoffs, on the outside of the playoffs looking in. They could be back in if they win this game. So they got to beat the St. Louis Battlehawks. But the St. Louis Battlehawks are going to be wanting to win this game because they want to clinch their playoff situation. The XFL has no one who has clinched a playoff yet. St. Louis has an opportunity against DC to clinch a playoff spot. And both of these guys have the best crowds, by the way. These are the two teams with the best crowds in the game, most loyal fans. They're there at every game. That'll probably happen again this time. So I'll say this. I think this game's going to be closer than you might think. If Te'amo's out, it's kind of over for the DC Defenders. Te'amo's out for the rest of the week because, like I said, he was concussed. It will be St. Louis Battlehawks 36-8. Yeah, it'll be that bad. 36-8. I'm going to say St. Louis Battlehawks. Okay, Arlington Renegades versus San Antonio Brahmas. Okay, Arlington Renegades are going to give San Antonio Brahmas a game. It depends on which Arlington team comes out. If it's the one that loses in the last minute because of either a penalty, a fumble, a block punt, or something like that, Arlington can't win this game. There is a good chance that Arlington can beat San Antonio this week if they play like they have. Unless Chase Garber just all of a sudden comes back. I don't think he's coming back for right now. But Arlington Renegades have a chance to beat the San Antonio Brahmas. I think this game's going to be close. So I'm going to say 20-18. That's what I'm going to say the final score for this game will be 20-18. So I've given you my predictions. I'm going to go ahead and give you my rankings as well. That's pretty easy. So we're going to start with Birmingham Stallions. Birmingham Stallions beat the St. Louis Battlehawks. That was the number 2 team. So Birmingham Stallions is still number 1. They're undefeated. They have conquered the mountain, so to speak. The only team that's left on the list that they haven't played is San Antonio Brahmas. And they got a chance to probably win that game. Unless that game is just a meaningless game, then Birmingham may not take that game so seriously. But for right now, Birmingham Stallions are the number 1 team by far. Following not too close behind them is St. Louis Battlehawks. They have a great offense. Hakeem is off the chain as far as wide receivers go. Running game's pretty decent at times. They've run back by committee, but it does work out for them. Also, they got A.J. McCarron. The defense is okay, but that offense is just spectacular. That's what keeps them in the winning ways where they are. They lost last week. They can recover from that. They should end up in the playoffs. So they're number 2. Number 3, this is where it starts getting hard. Number 3 is between Michigan Panthers and the San Antonio Brahmas. San Antonio Brahmas did not look good last week against the bottom feeder in Houston Roughnecks. Michigan Panthers looked very good also against a bottom feeder team like Memphis Showboat. So San Antonio's been winning the most. I want to give it to them now, but I'm going to say Michigan Panthers is number 3 right now. Number 3 team. Number 4 team is San Antonio Brahmas. They are definitely number 4. They are sitting right there at that cusp. If they can really win a game, it would just show that they can win a game. It'd be nice. They're playing Arlington this week. They get an opportunity to do that. So they're sitting at number 4. Number 5 is DC Defenders, and barely number 5. It depends on what team shows up this week. If the team that was playing earlier in the season, right after their first loss, is any good, they'll be fine. Okay, that would be the best. You come with that blitzing defense and you stop that pass, the pass and the run, you're gonna be a great team. But if you do what you did last week, where you couldn't stop the run and barely stop the pass, you're gonna lose. And you gotta protect your quarterback because Teamu's out this week. If he's out this week, this doesn't look good against the Arlington. But they are still number 5. Number 6, 7, and 8 really don't matter. But number 6 is DC, is the Arlington Renegades. They won this week, but they could have been winning. This team has that capability. Luis Perez is a leading quarterback, one of the leading quarterbacks in yardage. He's highly capable. The team is highly capable of winning games. They got a lot of talent at certain spots. For some reason, they've just been unlucky. They've had fumbles. They've had miscues on offense. They've had block punts. They've had all kinds of things that just are bad luck, string of bad luck. So they've only won one game this year, but they have an opportunity. They blew out the team they played. So they have an opportunity this week to win. So I'm going to put them at number 6. Number 7 is Houston Roughnecks. And number 7 and number 8 are not too far from each other. They're struggling, period, on offense. They don't even know who the quarterback is. Their running game is suspect. The guy they thought was going to be the top running back ain't doing nothing. Houston's just in a bad spot. They're not going to be a good team this year. So what they can do right now is save face as best they can, try to win the last couple of games and hopefully get, some momentum leading into next year. Memphis, on the other hand, is a dumpster fire. It has deteriorated even worse as the season's gone. They have the most sacked QB in the league next to, I think they are the most sacked QB in the league. Poor Chase Cookins is so black and blue. They've been putting in Troy Williams in his place. So it just depends on this week on what team comes out. That's all I'm going to say. If Memphis can even show up on the field, it would be great. But right now, they're Houston is dead. Houston is the next, and then Memphis is dead last. Just dead last. They suck. Okay, they're terrible. They don't have anything. The running game's terrible. They got David Davis is their best offensive player. Case Cookins, I think, is a much better quarterback than he's playing, but he doesn't have an offensive line. So what do you do? So that's number 8. So there you have it. Birmingham number 1, St. Louis Battlehawks number 2, not DC. Like I said, Michigan is number 3, San Antonio is number 4, DC is number 5, and I'm just totally disappointed by DC. I thought DC would be 1 or 2, but number 2 or 3 or maybe 1 by now, but they aren't. Number 6, like I said, is that Arlington Renegades, and that's because they've sure had the best performance of the worst teams. Houston Roughnecks is next. Again, like I said, they were performing in a trajectory a little bit better than the Memphis Showboats, but right now they're both at the bottom. And Memphis is dead last, just terrible right now. They don't know where they're going, heads up one way or the other. They're just trying to play along until the season's over. All right, guys, I've given my predictions. I previewed and reviewed every game Now, if you've heard me say something here and you want to comment on it, make sure you comment on it. But also make sure you like, share this with other people because I'm sure they're enjoying this conversation as well. So like, share, and subscribe. Peace.